Well, if you take things out to the eastern seaboard, no, we're not talking severe weather, but a lot of potential for flooding and some dangerous beach conditions. Heavy rain, coastal flooding, it's all in the cards. And they've been getting rocked since the weekend. I mean, this was out of Savannah, Georgia. You also see a rip current threat that's setting up along the entire eastern seaboard. We're talking rip current threats going from Montauk all the way down to Jacksonville, Florida. So from New York to Florida, that is the stretch of coastline. The overall setup, Britt and I were talking about it, there is that stationary boundary producing a lot of rain for Florida. Now, when you look at the Atlantic coast, the rain is just offshore. But we also are talking about a full moon, so the high tides are going to be even more impressive. And then this high setting up across the northeast is creating this onshore push of winds. And so that's going to sort of exacerbate the problems when it comes to some low-level tidal flooding.
It's a double whammy where you have intense heavy rain that's falling, and if that happens during high tide, you have the water pushing in, and so it all comes together and stacks up. And you think about towns like Savannah and Charleston, this is not a unique problem. It pretty much happens every time you have heavy rain and a high tide cycle because the tide cycle is so high. And then you throw in the fact that we have we have a full moon pretty much.
Yes.
Just barely off of it.
Yeah.
There's a look at the rip current threat, which is rather high. With an onshore wind, you're going to be increasing that potential of a rip current. And it is locals summer. So if you have a break in the weather, you have a nice day, there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to the beaches and they are unguarded. So please be very smart, be very careful. We could see some minor coastal flooding. Again, this is also associated with that onshore push in conjunction with the fact that we almost have a full moon. We're just coming off of it. Here's a look at the moderate coastal flooding that's anticipated from South Jersey into the Delmarva. We'll also experience this for the coastline of Georgia and South Carolina. So Savannah and Charleston, if you're local, you know the problem. If you're visiting and you've never been there, you're going to learn the problem really fast.
Yeah, this is just a normal drill for folks who live along the coastline, the onshore winds, and, you know, the high tide cycles when you're talking king tide. So just something to keep in mind, maybe if you're not a local and you're heading out to the beach, may not be the best day to get in the water.
Yeah, and you heard us mention the full moon. Let's dive into that. When it comes to flooding, some of these events can be influenced by the moon. We know the lunar phases can influence the tide, which is what we are seeing for the East Coast right now. But the same cycle also working with the energy from a storm like Kiko or another hurricane. That can bring in even higher tides. And we were looking at this for Hawaii for quite some time, trying to time out when the largest waves and that close graze of the storm would line up with the lunar cycle. We really focus on a full moon. And right now we're in a waning gibbous, so 95% full. We're just coming off of a full moon. We're also coming off of this perfect alignment. And if this all lines up at the same time, it's called a king tide. When you have the sun, the earth, and the moon perfectly aligned at the same time, you not only have a full moon, but because you have the moon so close to the earth at its closest point, then you're going to have an influence here where all of these tidal cycles are working together. So it's kind of like you're getting all those superheroes together, but not in the way that you want to be. It's going to increase the tide cycle, and these king tides or lunar perigee tides increase that coastal inundation. This water comes into these low-lying areas. So when we're in this type of a setup where we have a storm that's very close and we're coming off of the full moon, you really want to focus on the high tide cycle. Hilo, this is the high tide cycle that we're anticipating for Tuesday, which is the day we're going into, of course, Hawaii, a little bit behind our current time here on the East Coast if you're joining us. And, you know, the good news is they haven't issued or they've come back on some of those coastal flood advisories that were put up. But you still have to keep in mind that high tides might be running a little higher. The big impact is going to be the surf, and that's what you're looking at right there. The wave heights are going to be spectacular today, 10 to 15 feet. Not the highest that we've seen in Hawaii. This is a chain of islands that is known for big waves, but definitely impressive. Now, where we are seeing the lunar impacts for sure is the East Coast. We just mentioned all the advisories up and down the East Coast, but for Georgia and South Carolina, Jacksonville, Savannah, Charleston, these are all areas that are very influenced by the tidal cycle because we're coming off of this full moon experience and we have an onshore push. Look out for some inundation and coastal flood concerns.